And a ton of those guys won some weekly awards this week, and we'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Jay, we had a number of players win weekly awards from the SEC. Let's start with Fodje Wiwu, the right guard that I think his nomination is kind of a unit nomination. Obviously, he played really, really well. But that whole offensive line played really, really well. Also, SEC, what you doing? Why you got to do my man like that? I don't know if y'all saw
the worst.
I don't know if y'all saw the post on social media, but they used arguably his worst moment in the game where it was on an Xavier Robinson, that goal line touchdown, but he just got blown up on the play. And listen, it happens. It's going to happen from time to time. But otherwise, the dude played a great game. And he's one of those guys that could be back for you next year and be playing at right guard, and has gotten better and better and better all season long.
Yeah, and one thing I've been impressed with Fodje as well, on top of, because he was the second highest graded pass blocker, and he was top 5 in run blocking based upon the grades from PFF. So he had a really good game. Like pass blocking, we did really good as far as blocking out there with Logan, both of our tackles, as well as Fodje was doing his thing. But that one is hilarious that of all ones to pick, you pick the one where he just had no success. But you're right. This line, just as a unit, did so well moving furniture in this game that you were just thoroughly impressed that they were able to do it. In this game, John, we gave up 4 hurries, and that's it. That's it. So Alabama was credited with the sack. When I did my rewatch, I found the exact time when that sack happened. It was when Jackson Arnold ran out of bounds. He lost 3 yards. So Malachi Moore basically pushed him out of bounds, but he was the closest person to him. So he got credited with the sack because it was a loss of yards on a pass play. But Jackson Arnold ran out of bounds.
Yep.
He wasn't tackled. He didn't fall. He just ran out of bounds, and Malachi pushed him over there, and he just stepped out of bounds, and then went back on the field. So I was like, oh, okay, so that's what the credit for the sack was. And so when I looked it up, PFF did not credit any of our players with giving up a sack because we didn't, which is crazy to say. We gave up 9 to South Carolina and 10 to Ole Miss. We gave up 4 hurries the entire game. And so they did everything you needed as far as blocking goes. And I was impressed and Fodje getting that award was definitely an accumulation of what he's been doing. My favorite part about him, though, too, is he had to come out for a drive. I'm not sure why, but he ended up having to come out the game, and EPL came in. And EPL, of course, he's out there moving furniture. He's got those dudes moving around. He's pushing them. And there was a timeout in there. As soon as you went from that timeout to the sideline, you see Fodje Wiwu hyping up EPL, pointing out things he needs to do, but he was up there encouraging his teammate who came in to take his spot for the moment. I was like, okay, that's impressive that you recognize and had the foresight to realize I may have lost. I came out for whatever reason, but no matter what, we need to win as a team. And I just love the way that he showed that team effort.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's like, hey, I'm not going to pout. And that's a beautiful thing, man. When you have a good team culture, guys don't get like that when they have to come out of the game. They continue to encourage their teammates. Xavier Robinson won Freshman of the Week for 107 yards on 18 carries, and just had another great game, man. The dude, I mean, he got overlooked by some other people, but the SEC recognized the work that he did. 4 catches for 20 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. Xavier Robinson is just having a really, really good season over the last few weeks. Has turned himself into the RB1 for this team.
Yeah, I think he may have actually earned that spot. It's going to be tough to not give that to him going into next season, and we'll talk about what that looks like going forward. But no, he looks like he's your RB1 with the way that he's running, the way that he's playing. Yeah, he's probably going to be RB1. And granted, it's good to see someone establish himself as the guy that wants that job. unfortunately, with Javonte Barnes, he just hasn't, he was the hardest working running back. Gavin Sawchuk just hasn't been healthy. Taylor Tatum fumbles often, but he's gonna get that fixed. I don't have any concerns about that. But Xavier Robinson has been the workhorse that we've needed. And I feel like he's going to be that dude for you going forward. And he's going to play his 4 years. If he makes it for 4 full years, he may actually play 2 more years, and the league calls him and says, you need to come on up.
Yep.
That's just how good he is. And I'm really happy that he was able to show up in this game and get the opportunity to show out.
Yeah, he's accumulated over 300 total yards in the last few weeks. He's doing, I know some of that was against Maine, but also some of that was against Alabama. And a lot of that was against Missouri. So the dude has put in work against everybody. Anytime he gets out on the field and he gets a chance to touch the ball, he's looking to make somebody pay for being in his way. And also Eli Bowen earned one of the was it Eli Bowen? No, Armeson Thomas, sorry. Defensive lineman of the week, Armeson Thomas. Dude, another phenomenal game. I'm now starting to get concerned that he will play himself into a top 100 draft slot in the NFL draft this spring.
Kirk Herbstreit said it on the broadcast. He's one of the, if not the best edge rusher in the SEC. He's up there. He's up there top 3 easily, and he is a menace. It's funny because we talked about this before when it comes to Armeson Thomas and the way he plays in this Brent Venables defense. Our main complaint has been that, hey, man, can you do what you do in the second half in the first 2? Mm-hmm. And you see the pressures, but you see it feels like what Armeson Thomas does is he wears down that tackle as he gets more time in. And then as he gets more time in, he wears him, and then he starts to play around. And boom, he figures out the way to get around him, and he's right there in the quarterback's face because that's exactly what happened. He started getting hits on Milroe late in that game. So Jalen Milroe's getting hit by Armeson on a regular, and you're like, oh, that's what he's doing. And so it feels like that's how he shows up so much in the second half, is that he wears that tackle down as he comes in, the opposing tackle, and boom, he's going there. So LSU's going to have some work. Their 2 big tackles are considered some of the best in the SEC. They're going to have some problems. We'll talk about that, of course, in one of the later episodes, but they're going to have some issues trying to contain this man. He going to be a problem.
Well, one of the other things is he's doing a disciplined job in the defensive scheme, not just getting upfield to rush the passer. Like he's maintaining his responsibilities as a run defender. He's setting the edge. He's also maintaining contain against a guy like Jalen Milroe. It could be 3rd and long in the first half, but Jalen Milroe is still a threat to run on a quarterback draw or a quarterback power. And so, yeah, it might be 3rd and 10, but I've still got a responsibility to maintain contain so that Jalen Milroe doesn't get outside of me on my pass rush. So like the early game stuff, listen, I get it, but there's so much more to playing defensive end than just rushing the passer. You've got responsibilities beyond that. And what I think we're seeing in the second half, especially as you get into the fourth quarter, when teams are now forced to pass, Armeson Thomas can flip the switch and say, all right, let's go get him. Let's just get after it. And when he can flip that switch and it is an obvious passing situation, there are few players as good as he is about creating pressure on the quarterback and just creating havoc. He's so good, man. And I'm glad to finally see it, because for 2 years, right? And maybe not so much in the 2022 season, you didn't predict the breakout, but you saw the flashes in 2022. And then in 2023, he was injured a lot. And so you didn't really get to see the culmination of those flashes from the year before, but now you're seeing it. Now he's been healthy all year. He's been able to put together game after game after game. Now he's got 8 sacks on the season. He's got 11 tackles for loss. I mean, the guy just continues to get better and better all the time. And I mean, yeah, it's going to be a good challenge for him this week against LSU, but he's shown that he can be up for the challenge. LSU, they like to throw the ball a lot. You're not going to have to worry necessarily about Garrett Nussmeier running as much, but you're going to get a lot of opportunity to see Armeson Thomas against those 2 really good offensive tackles. It's going to be a great, great matchup, great theater on television if you like watching offensive line, defensive line play. Danny Stutsman, another dude who just continues to establish his greatness for the Oklahoma Sooners, led the Sooners to that defensive victory. We'll discuss him coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.